Hi everyone, my name is Sean Kaup, and I've been selling on Amazon since 2022. I've lifetime sold over $7 million worth of products, and starting my YouTube journey today, and I'm going to be giving out useful tips, tricks, and some free guidance on how you can start, grow, and scale your Amazon business. So the topic of today's video is going to be the pros and cons of selling on the Amazon.com platform. So first, let's start with the pros. It's remote. You can do it from anywhere in the world. All you need is an internet connection, a little bit of drive, some starting capital, and you're ready to go, right? So what drew me to Amazon selling in the first place, right? Well, I saw it as a highly scalable business model that would instantly give me access to all of Amazon's customers, as well as the fulfillment network to take care of the logistics side. So on day one, you have millions of customers at your fingertips. Now it's up to you to get the right product at the right price, right? Sounds simple enough. So another great part about Amazon is that there's very limited downside risk, right? Let's say you're doing online arbitrage or wholesale. You buy a product, right? And worst case scenario, I think you're going to have minimal profit, break even. Worst case scenario, you're looking at a 5 to 10% loss. So it's nothing compared to like stocks or cryptos or meme coins. It's not going to zero. As long as you've done your due diligence ahead of time, you know that this is a moving product and you've done your analysis on it. There's very, very limited downside risk, and it's unlikely that you will be stuck with a product that can't move unless your due diligence is really, really, really bad, right? So another great thing about this model is that it allows you to calculate your return on investment in advance. So this is specifically applying to online arbitrage and wholesale. Basically, you get a price for an item, you plug it into your seller amp, your Keepa, you run the numbers, you greenlight it if it's good, you move on if it's bad, right? So you're able to pretty accurately calculate exactly how much of your money you're going to be earning, and forecast your cash flows, which is pretty much unheard of for any other startup, right? Okay, so I also think there's very low upfront costs in getting started. I believe the Amazon seller account is $40 a month. By the time you're done with your basic softwares, you're looking at, I don't know, $100 a month, right, to get started. But you should easily be able to make that back, especially if you're young, you're hungry, and you are technologically savvy, right? This shouldn't be $100 a month is pretty much nothing to make back, in my opinion, at least, right? So what are the downsides? So I would warn you that if you want to especially scale your business up and make a lot of money doing it, it's a very capital intensive game. What do I mean by that? I mean that you need to buy products in order to sell them. You can't sell anything that you don't already have, right? So if your goal is to scale to 10, 25, 50, 75,000, $100,000 a month in sales, you need to have those products already. You have to have already bought them in order to sell them. You can't make money on money that you don't already have. That's one of the biggest issues that I see new sellers run into or kind of get unrealistic about it. Say you have $500 to start, right? You're not going to get to $100,000 a month without extreme leverage, And what I mean by extreme leverage is borrowing money, or maybe it's credit cards, maybe it's a loan, or maybe it's, your initial capital itself. So let's say realistically, say I buy $20,000 worth of products, right? I could, I might be able to sell them for $50,000 after I'm all done, Amazon fees and everything. Maybe at the end of the day, I collect $10,000, right? But if I come in with 500, that's a different equation, right? You can't say, you can't speculate and come up with an unrealistic equation. You got to be very by the book, very mathematically orientated. And I think if you have a basic understanding of finance and how it works, this should be pretty simple stuff to you. If not, I highly recommend reading up on it and getting to know it before you start to move some serious money into Amazon, or before you get your hopes up too high for what you can realistically accomplish. Okay, moving on. It's pretty complicated to organize, especially if you're dealing with a large, number of ASINs. Say you have 100 products, right? You have to restock 100 products. So you have to track their location. You have to make sure that they're organized. You have to make sure that you're not losing them. You need to make sure that your supplier is not shorting you. Maybe you order 500 units and only 450 come in. If you're not checking that, you're already off to negative 10% on your investment, okay? So you need to be tracking the location of all of your items, and especially once you're past maybe $30,000 a month in sales, highly recommend you get a virtual assistant and you have them do audits of all of your purchases. And if they're shipping them to a prep center, you're going to need them to confirm that. If they're shipping it to your house or your home, you need to be doing that. You need to be counting all of your shipments, making sure you're not losing anything. Because this is something that's very easy to do, especially when you're talking about thousands and thousands of units. Or it can even be done with 50 units, right? Say you don't count them, you only got 45, okay? Not in a good spot. You really need to be on the ball, checking everything. And you need to also make sure that Amazon is not losing it. And if they are, you got to hold them responsible through filing a case. So another problem is kind of like long payout times. Amazon realistically takes at least 2 to 3 weeks to pay you once you've made the sale and it's delivered. And this is kind of in stark contrast to maybe a Shopify or an eBay, where you're getting the money right away, right? So this goes back to my first point about it being capital intensive. So you need to front the money in order in the meantime to keep buying new inventory and keep your business chugging, because as I said earlier, you can't sell things that you don't have. Okay, another huge pain with the Amazon platform is they make it very easy for the customers to return their products, right? So refunds are definitely an issue, and if you're not paying attention to your refunds, you're going to think that you're making a lot more money than you actually are. So there's a lot of softwares that you can use to track this. I use Sifted and Sellerboard. I think they're phenomenal, and I would highly recommend. But if you're just getting started, you can just keep track of this manually through your reimbursement portal in Amazon Seller Central. So this also makes the accounting very complicated, right? So it's very often for new sellers to vastly overestimate the amount of money they're making, because they're not organizing their units, they're not counting and checking and auditing. So they don't know exactly what they have on hand. They don't know how many refunds they're getting, right? And they're not calculating it properly. And they don't know how much inventory they've lost. So for me, I'm currently doing around $200,000 a month. It's pretty often for me to lose between, let's say, $500 and $2,000 worth of products per month. I just don't know where they went. Maybe we didn't do the auditing correctly. It's kind of impossible once you're at scale to nail down every single last unit. So it's just something to keep in mind, especially as you grow, that it'll be more and more complicated to rein in and manage. So this makes the accounting extremely complicated, especially when it comes to tax time, which it currently is, right? You don't want to say, hey, I made $120,000 when in reality you only made $50,000. Now you're paying 2.5 times your taxes, and you are really just shooting yourself right in the foot. So I would say that covers most of the downsides. So now let's talk about what you need to do to get started. I would recommend, you don't have to do this, but I would file for LLC immediately, and I would get a business bank account and a credit card, right? Why do I say this? Because I think a lot of the times, especially for people who are kind of exploring it, they want to tip their toe, put their toe in the water, check the temperature, see if this is really what they want to do. Maybe they're like, oh, this is a potential side hustle for me, right? I don't want you to think about that at all, because you're really limiting your chances of success. What I want you to do is think about yourself as a founder, right? Think of yourself as someone who is starting a business. It's not a side hustle, and you're really excited about it, okay? So don't waste a bunch of time watching YouTube videos, being in analysis paralysis, and just go for it. The downside risk is pretty limited. I think at worst, you'll just waste some of your time and realize maybe this isn't for you. But I would way rather have you just hit the ground running and go full speed than sit around and waste your time on YouTube, because at least at the end of the day, you'll have learned something you can take away, something that you tangibly have for the rest of your life, okay? You're not going to get that on YouTube, right? So once you've got your LLC set up, you've got your EIN, you've got your business bank account, and you've got a credit card, first thing I would do is go over to SellerAmp download that, get a membership. I believe it's $15 a month, and I would download Keepa. Right? What are these softwares going to do? So they're going to enable you to calculate your return on your investment for buying products, and it's going to allow you to look at the price history. Okay, so these are pretty much the keys to the game. Everything over that is kind of just an add-on, something nice to have, especially as you scale up, right? You want a little bit more in-depth knowledge on the products you're making so you can make smarter decisions. But I think that's all you really need to get started, okay? But what do you need to scale, right? So first thing, once you've got a few $100s in Amazon sales, right? What I would do is I would go out and get a repricer. What kind of repricer? So I'd recommend Aura for new sellers because it is on the more affordable end. Once you scale past 50K, definitely head over and get your Seller Snap. It's a AI repricer. Cannot say enough good things about it. It's $500 a month, so only for really advanced sellers, I would say. But it'll make you that back in multiples if you're using it correctly. Personally, for me, I spend $500. I've calculated that we make between $2,000 and $2,500 per month using it. So a 4 to 5x, no brainer, right? And then what are you going to need after that? So if you're like me, you live in a city, I live in New York City, I can't be sending all of these items to my apartment. It's not that big, and it's a huge hassle. They can't pick up pallets from my apartment. Not going to work. What do? You need a prep center. A prep center is basically a warehouse for lease. So for example, I have mine in Atlanta and I have one in Los Angeles as well. So I send my units to them and then they charge me on a per unit basis. I'm currently paying about 65 cents per unit. So let's say I send them 1,000 units and pallets. I'm going to pay them $650 to recount it, repackage it, and then send it on to Amazon. My shipping will be separate from that and deducted from my seller account, right? And then another thing I would highly recommend as you scale and even just starting out is to network with other sellers, talk with them about your challenges and how their challenges as well, and see what their workarounds are, what they're thinking, where they think the market is going. I think networking with other sellers is definitely something that has helped unlock like a new part of my game and selling on Amazon, because you are only one person thinking at the end of the day. If you can take a little piece of every seller that you talk to and use it in your business model, I think you will grow a lot faster than just trying to look in the dark and find everything through trial and error. So if you liked the video, please comment, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate you spending this time with me. Thank you very much, and have a great day, guys.